Let's now click Res Plus to subdivide a few times to where I eliminate most of that faceting. I'll go ahead and demonstrate the ability to conform the retopo mesh along with any large-scale changes I may make to my high poly sculpt object. I'll do that by reposing the arm with the pose tool. I'll go to the adjust section and the pose tool, and I'm going to go to an orthographic view, front view. When working in an orthographic view, I like to change the rotation center to object bounding box. That way it centers it up nicely. Turn symmetry on by hitting the S key. Now I can choose what type of selection I want to use, whether it's line selection. I'm going to choose a brush. I can see that it's selecting areas I may not want. Now let's hide the gizmo. I can go to paint select and then use a shape marquee like a freeform lasso. Hold down the control key to invert so that I'm deselecting. And I'll do the same thing, hold down the control key down here. Also want to make sure ignore back faces is unchecked so that it's selecting all the way through the model. I can click smooth the selection. I'm also going to turn wireframe off for the moment. Now I can go back to the hide gizmo option and unhide that. So what I need to do is move this, hold down the shift key so I can move just the pivot point, just the gizmo, and orient it to the shoulder region. Now what I want to do is check conform retopo mesh and make my edit. I can move it in the screen space with this little circle here. Okay, so let's clear the selection. Let's use something like the build-up brush. Hold down the shift key and I see the little green profile. I can smooth these rough areas here. At the top we have a couple different options for smoothing. This is your control key list menu and your control shift key list menu. They're identical, but you can assign different smoothing types to each keyboard combination. So anti-bump is really good for surface level irregularities that you want to smooth out, but it won't degrade the overall shape. So as the name implies, it's really for very small surface level bumps or indentations. And then control shift is your normal smooth. Powerful smooth, it's actually going to do a little bit of decimation beneath your brush, and it's really good for any small holes that you may notice. It's probably the first thing you're going to want to use because again it will remesh just beneath your brush. Now if you make changes with your brush, then that conform retopo mesh is not an option, and that's for performance reasons. However, retopo mesh snapping to brush edits is rather easy and quick. I'll go ahead and demonstrate the difference between the two by doing a sample of each, starting with the move tool. You can see it conforms once I let up from my brush. But let's say if I want to start sculpting now, let's say with a build-up brush. See, I don't have a conform retopo mesh option here. Hold down the shift key to smooth, or the control shift key. I'm going to come out of orthographic view by hitting the 5 key on the number pad, or I can go back up here and click the cube icon. But I'll hit the F7 key, so I'm instantly in the Retapa workspace. I have the brush tool active, as I mentioned earlier. Now, what I can do is simply go back to the areas where I made those sculpting edits, and I can rotate around. Anywhere I see it protruding through, I can simply just tap with auto snapping enabled here at the top. I can just tap and it will automatically snap only underneath my brush. Now another option is to click snap. You can assign a hotkey to make it very fast. So again, all I would have to do is hit F7 and then the hotkey for snap. But in this instance, where you can see you've got a lot of details and objects that are very close to one another, like the toes, I want to be careful with that because clicking a global snap may cause snapping errors here. That's why I prefer to use localized snapping with auto snap and the brush. You can also hold down the shift key and it will smooth the mesh. You can see that profile is quite high. If I right click and drag down, it will decrease the amount of smoothing. So it's more subtle. And sometimes that's what you want. So it's snapping and it's smoothing at the same time. Same thing here in the neck region. Another alternative for snapping is if I know I just worked maybe in this torso area, I could select the polygons here. One quick way of doing that is if I know everything is confined inside this area, I can go to the select tool and in faces mode, I can just pick that island in the UV map. Now all I have to do is click snap and it's only going to snap the vertices that are selected or the faces that are selected. I'm going to go ahead and switch to a version where I did a little bit of additional work.